Howdy, this is for people that are curious about trucking, because I received some feedback from my earlier videos where I talk about how to make money with trucking. So I just want to describe briefly a week in trucking. Sorry, I look tired. I feel tired. I hardly slept this night. There were trucks, going by. I had to stop at the border crossing because I had an oversized load and I could not drive away because it was already dark. But anyway, I started looking for a load for my flatbed trailer last Wednesday, and there's a couple of big steel factories where I live here in Ontario, specifically in Hamilton, and I found a coil that was going to Alabama. It paid pretty good, so I booked the load through our Landstar agent, and on Friday, exactly 1 week ago, I drove to the plant, and first of all, the GPS was not able to find the location because you know how they are very choosy about the type of the roadway. Like if you put boulevard instead of, let's say, of drive or road, the GPS might not find it. And actually that street they gave me, it wasn't even in the database. But anyway, I found it. I'm there. Last minute the agent calls me and he says there's a new pickup number. And if you ever if you'll be dealing with steel plants, you'll know that they're very particular about your pickup information, because they have to prepare all these coils. They have to find them. Usually there's like a huge place, and it's called a coil field, and these guys, basically they must know beforehand what coil you're picking up. So this guy changed the pickup number, and that threw a monkey wrench in my plans, because I had to spend like 2 hours there because they were looking for that coil. And actually this place, I never saw something like that before. It was all computerized. The crane was run by a computer. So these guys just punch in the pickup number, and the computer knows where this crane, where the coil is, and it sends the crane all by itself. I'm standing there next to these guys, right, and they're standing like this with their hands, with their arms crossed on their chest, and I'm saying, who's over there in the field looking for the coil? And they say, nobody. It's the computer. Jesus. So you learn something new every day, and you deal with some very cool equipment. Anyway, they find this coil, and this coil now, instead of 37,000 pounds, is 40,000 pounds. It's a big mother. But I did them before, and you just need to be careful. I had to do a test online because Alabama has a special provision, like a requirement. You must take an online test and then print out a certificate that you did this Alabama coil training, because evidently they have coils falling off the truck in that particular state. And so you cannot haul coils to and from Alabama unless you do this training. So I did the training, printed out the certificate, and headed over there with the coil. I didn't have any problems, except I had to stop and check the tarp basically every 2 hours, because the damn thing just kept flapping. And it's been a while since I tarped, and just now for this particular load I had to buy 16 by 16 tarp, because I threw out my big tarps. So now I'm just gonna use tarps for coils, because sometimes they pay pretty good. Like this one paid okay, and I'm on percentage pay, so the more the load pays and the shorter the distance, so the less fuel I burn, so the more money goes into my pocket. But these guys, they don't pay for tarping. Usually there's a tarping fee which goes to the driver, because you have to spend extra time, right? And you have to have the tarp, you have to have the bungee cords. It all costs money, but these guys don't care. So This particular load did not pay anything for tops, for topping, and I couldn't find the consignee on my GPS again. I mean, I should replace my GPS. I mean, I have just a basic car type now, because I've been, you know, trying all different ones, and sometimes new developments are not in the GPS, because like the street is there but the number is not there, and let's say I was going to 30,000 or 36,000, but the GPS could only find like 23,000, the building number, which is of course a huge difference. So but I was able to use my smartphone. I have internet access in the States, not in Canada, but in US I have internet access, and I found even the consignee, like the name. I even was able to read the reviews, like drivers posted reviews, you know, on Google, and one guy wrote that he likes that place because it's close to his home and he often hauls coils to and from that plant, but he hates it because there's always waiting time. And I'm like, what the, you know, what's he talking about? And I go there, and true enough, I spent 4 hours. If you've seen my latest video there about unloading, that's where I was unloading with this coil. I spent 4 hours, came at 4:30, and the appointment was pre-booked, and still I left at like 12:30, so exactly 4 hours. But anyway, so that was only one trip, and I don't have an internet on my laptop, and you know, the company I work for, Landstar, we don't have any dispatch, so no one is going to look for loads for me. I have to do it myself. I'm my own dispatch, and actually I like it that way better, so no one is pushing me. You know, I decide which load to take, so I love it. It's pretty easy nowadays to find internet access, you know, McDonald's, Starbucks, Panera Bread, whole bunch of places, or you can go to a hotel, you know, and there's always internet. So I find this place where I unloaded, it was in the middle of nowhere. It's actually, the bill said Talladega, Alabama, but this was like way north of Talladega, and there's nothing there. There's just a plant, and kind of like Hanna, Alberta, if you saw my previous video. Now I'm gonna get some grief from Hanna fans, but anyway, so I drove to north towards interstate. There's a little town called Oxford, Alabama, right on I-20, and I passed it on the way there, and I saw that there was Starbucks, McDonald's, and I found some parking spot there, and I spent maybe a day there looking for a load, using my laptop and a free Wi-Fi at the Starbucks, and I found a load 300 miles away, and of course I'm paying for fuel myself, but that was the best option available, because I cannot do loads inside US, right? I'm Canadian, so I have to go back to Canada. I can go to any part of Canada, like Saskatchewan, Alberta, but you know, I tried that. Now I decided to do like 1,000 miles only, like one way, 1,000 miles back. But on the way back, actually, it became more, because I had to go like southwest, like do Deadhead, almost 300 miles. So I went to this little town called Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I picked up some oversized air conditioning units. Like, again, loading 4 hours. The unloading of this coil took 4 hours. The loading of this 4 oversized, like commercial size AC units, you know, the ones they use in big buildings, and they were sticking out 50 centimeters on each side. Basically, they were the biggest one was 12 feet wide. I don't like doing them because it's very stressful, you know, when you drive and you have this stuff sticking out on both sides of your trailer. My trailer, of course, is 101 inches wide, or 8.5 or 8.6. Yeah, 8 feet 6 inches. So imagine, so you have that much on the left side, that much on the right side. Basically, what, 1.5 feet, right? It's a lot, and it's stressful because you have to watch people passing you, so that, you know, especially car drivers don't pay attention when they pass you. So of course I have all the flags and signs, you know, and I had a light in the back, so but I made it. The only problem was, yeah, this was no topping, and it paid pretty good. The only problem was I had to order permits because this is an oversized load, right? It was only 20,000 pounds in weight. The height was legal, the length was legal, but actually they needed a trailer like mine, 53 feet, because I only had like 1 foot left after they loaded this. And the guy who loaded me, it was like a big crane, you know, kind of like they use in marine docks, like huge wheels, and it's like a big frame, and it picks up this air conditioning units, and it goes right over your trailer, and its wheels are on both sides, you know. It's like one of those crazy units. And the problem was the operator was sitting on the right, like on one side, and he could not see, you know, and these guys were like, you know, we're not giving him good direction, so he was always ending with this unit sitting at an angle. And it took a long time because his crane, like, he cannot move the load. He has to position everything using his steering wheel, you know. So, Jesus, that's why it took like 4 hours. But they managed it, and then I only was able to get the Mississippi permit because it was already like 5 o'clock Central Time. And then I started getting permits on the next day, and permits costs come out of the whatever the load pays, you know, the line haul. So the more permits, of course, the less money for me. And the worst thing was that, you know, it's hard to find, like, I don't have a printer in the truck. I tried using a regular one, like I have a adapter, you know, like a inverter, which actually came with my Dell laptop. I can plug it in a 12-volt, you know, socket, no problem. But the regular printers, they take much more juice, and whatever that adapter provides is not enough. So I need to find one of those small printers that cops use, you know, and inspectors, because I saw them use them in cars, right? But they are tiny ones. I guess cartridges would cost a lot as well. But you definitely need a printer, you know, if you deal with loads yourself, because faxing, you can go broke. Like, to give you an example, okay, one permit was like 3 pages. The truck stop charged me $2 per each page, right? Then all of them pretty much were, because I was traveling, right? I would pick up a couple of permits, then go to another state because the other state were not permits were not ready. Then I call ComData at Landstar and give them the new fax number, and they will fax it. And all fees were $2 per page, and total was like probably what, maybe 15-20 pages. So of course, who's paying for this? I am. So that's my business expense. So that's what you deal with when you have an oversized load. And the worst part was when I came to the bridge in Port Huron, Michigan. It was almost exactly 9 o'clock, and the sunset time was like 8:32 or something. So they didn't even want to let me through on the bridge. But then finally they showed some mercy, and they said, okay, this time only, just go over. So I paid, of course, the fee. It's like $16.25 because you have 5 axles, and they charge by the axle. And I was able to go over the bridge and shut down there because it was already dark, so you cannot drive. Especially since there's a inspection station on the Canadian side, maybe, you know, like 5-10 miles away from the border. And that's why I shut down at this customs parking. They have special parking there on the Canadian side in Sarnia, Ontario. And all these trucks, Jesus, you know, I woke up at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, I would wake up, go back to sleep, wake up, go back to sleep. So that's why I feel tired. And these guys had a crane appointment for me in Brantford, Ontario. They're building like a big kind of like industrial shop, you know, like huge. And that's where these AC units were going. And whenever you deal with a crane, these guys are always very particular about, you know, your arrival time. So you cannot be late because they'll start screaming at you, because, you know, crane companies charge them for, you know, for waiting time. So that when the crane sits, it's like, I don't know, $500 an hour or something. So that's why I got up at like 5:30 and started driving exactly 30 minutes before the sunrise. And actually, again, my phone was and Google were useful. I just punch in, I opened the Google, and because I was so close to the US border, I still had internet on the smartphone. I turn off my data once I'm in Canada because it's just too expensive here. So I punch in sunrise time, Sarnia, Ontario. Boom! Right away I see the answer, because with the oversized load you cannot you can only start driving half an hour before the sunrise, and you have to stop driving half an hour after the sundown, right? So I started driving at like 6 o'clock. No stopping, nothing, 59 miles per hour or 95 kilometers an hour. Boom, 402, 403, 401, I did part on the 401, our freeways here, it's all freeway. And I was at the Brantford at like 8:02 a.m. The guys were happy to see me, so took them a couple of hours to unload these because they were positioning them on the special concrete pads they created for these huge. It was when they took them off, only then I realized how huge these AC units were. They were like a smaller room, you know, probably over 6 feet tall. Well, yeah, they were like 7 feet tall. So the guy just opened the door on the side when this unit was on the ground. The mechanics or technicians just opened the door, went in and started walking around, and I'm just, Jesus, I can't believe that I had that thing on my trailer. It really looked huge once it was on the ground. So I had 4 pieces, you know, each about 13 feet long, so 12 feet wide, 7 feet tall. So that was quite some load. And so it was 930 miles with the coil, then 300 miles empty, and probably 1150 miles back. And I didn't even rest anywhere. I didn't do any resets, but I was right on time with my logbook, because we have to take you know, you have to note how much you drive, right, and when you stop and so on. And I just calculated my IFTA, like my fuel report, and I saw I did almost exactly 2,500 miles in 1 week. Usually I don't do that much, so this was a good week, and I think I'll try to stay under 1,000 miles radius in the future. So that's what trucking looks, just to give you a quick example, you know, for guys that and gals that think about the career in trucking. This was Sergey Drachev, Cambridge, Ontario. Take care.